This young woman shared videos on social media until it was discovered that she was part of a group associated with the trafficking of illicit substances and ended up meeting a tragic fate. Incredibly, she was not the only one to draw attention with a story full of twists and turns. For example, Emma Coronel, who faced the courts after years of a luxurious life alongside one of the biggest traffickers in the world. Born on the 2nd of July of 1989, Emma Modesta Coronel grew up in the quiet village of La Angostura, Durango, in Mexico. Daughter of Blanca Estela Aispuro and Inez Coronel Barreras, a cattle rancher and associate of Joaquin El Chapo Guzman, Emma spent her childhood surrounded by mountains and the silence of rural life. Destiny, however, seemed to have different plans for her. From a young age, Emma stood out for her beauty. It was in 2007, at the traditional Coffee and Guava Festival in the city of Canales, that her life took an unexpected turn. As part of the beauty contest, each contestant had to organize a celebration. On Three Kings Day, during Emma's party, she met Joaquin Guzman, or El Chapo, a drug trafficker and leader of the Sinaloa cartel. Emma and Joaquin Guzman got married on the 2nd of July of 2007, exactly on the day she turned 18. For many, it was an unlikely union. He was already known as one of the leaders of the dangerous Sinaloa cartel. She was a young woman, fresh out of adolescence. The marriage symbolized not only a personal commitment, but also a definitive link between her quiet life in Durango and a dangerous and glamorous world. The young woman soon found herself immersed in a universe that mixed luxury and risk. In 2011, already as Guzman's wife, Emma traveled to Lancaster, California, where she gave birth to twin girls. Curiously, El Chapo's name was omitted from the children's birth certificates. At the time, he was on the United States Most Wanted list with a multi-million-dollar reward for his capture. Emma always showed loyalty to her husband. In 2016, during an interview with a television channel, she defended Guzman, claiming that his life was in danger and asking for justice for him. Her constant presence at El Chapo's trial in 2019 drew media attention. Sitting in court almost every day, she was a form of support for her husband, even in the face of the serious accusations he was facing. Emma's involvement with cartel operations, however, did not go unnoticed. On the 22nd of February of 2021, she was arrested at Dulles International Airport, accused of helping Guzman in his operations. Evidence presented by authorities included messages between Emma and cartel associates, showing that she had participated in escape plans and bribes. After being arrested, reports indicated that Emma was seeking a deal with the justice system. Despite her lawyer's denial, authorities presented strong evidence against her, including a handwritten letter by Guzman. On the 10th of June of 2021, Emma accepted a plea deal and pleaded guilty to several charges, including involvement in transactions related to illicit properties. The final judgment came on the 30th of November of 2021. Despite the seriousness of the accusations, the judge took into account that Emma was only a teenager when she became involved with Guzman. The sentence was 3 years in prison, later reduced to 31 months, followed by 4 years of supervised release. Emma served her sentence in a federal institution in Texas and was released on the 13th of September of 2023. Born on the 11th of October of 1960 in Baja California, Mexico, Sandra Avila Beltran seemed to have her destiny traced even before taking her first steps. Daughter of Maria Luisa Beltran Felix and Alfonso Avila Quintero, she grew up surrounded by a family with deep connections to the underworld of illicit substances. Her father had ties to Rafael Caro Quintero, one of the leaders of the Guadalajara cartel, while other relatives were involved in operations dating back to the 1970s. The environment in which she grew up was both a school and a catalyst for her future career. While many children dream of a life different from that of their parents, Sandra followed the path laid out before her. She was part of the third generation of her family to become involved in this world. Her great-uncle, Juan Jose Quintero Payan, was extradited to the United States on related charges, and her uncle, Miguel Angel Felix Gallardo, known as the godfather of Mexican trafficking, also loomed large in this dark narrative. In her youth, Sandra Avila Beltran cultivated relationships that shaped her trajectory. She was married twice, and both husbands, former police officers who became key figures in organized crime, met tragic ends when their lives were taken by hired killers. Later, her involvement with Juan Diego Espinoza Ramirez, known as El Tigre, would place her even more at the center of cartel operations. El Tigre was a prominent figure in the Colombian North Valley cartel, and the relationship between the two was not only personal, but also professional. Together, they formed a powerful but dangerous duo. It was this partnership that attracted the attention of authorities in 2001, when more than 9 tons of illicit substances were found on a ship at the port of Manzanillo in the Pacific. The shipment was traced back to Sandra and Espinoza, beginning her downfall. Despite leading a life of luxury, marked by mansions and luxury cars in Guadalajara and Hermosillo, Sandra managed to avoid leaving traces for authorities. Her fame as the Queen of the Pacific grew, and she demonstrated an uncommon talent for escaping investigations. But in 2002, an unexpected event changed everything: the kidnapping of her teenage son. Desperate, she contacted authorities, asking for help to raise the $5 million demanded as ransom. Although she managed to save her son, the move raised suspicions. Investigations intensified, and in 2007, after more than 4 years of searches, she was finally arrested alongside Espinoza Ramirez in Mexico City. Sandra was charged with money laundering and connections to illicit substances. During interrogation, she described herself as a simple housewife who earned extra money renting houses and selling clothes. However, the evidence told a different story. Her life in prison was not easy. Held at the Santa Marta Acatitla Penitentiary under conditions she considered inadequate, Sandra complained about the presence of insects in her cell and the prohibition of receiving food from restaurants. In 2011, her situation drew even more attention when a doctor was authorized to apply Botox to her, a privilege not allowed to other inmates. The incident resulted in the dismissal of prison staff. Extradited to the United States in 2012, Sandra faced new charges. During her trial, she admitted to having provided financial support to Espinoza between 2002 and 2004. In 2013, she was sentenced to 70 months in prison, but time already served reduced her sentence. After her release in the United States in 2013, Sandra was deported to Mexico, where she immediately faced new money laundering charges. She spent 2 more years in prison before finally being released in 2015. In total, the Queen of the Pacific spent 7 years detained, 2 of them in isolation. Currently, Sandra lives in Guadalajara, far from the spotlight that once surrounded her figure. Her story, however, remains a powerful reminder of the choices she made and the price she paid for them. In the suburb of Secondigliano in Naples, a girl grew up amid the power and tension of the underworld. This was not a common childhood. Maria Licciardi, from an early age, was surrounded by the name and strength of the Licciardi clan, one of the most notorious of the Camorra, the Neapolitan mafia organization. Her father was a respected local boss, and her brothers, including Gennaro Licciardi, known as the Monkey, were already central figures in organized crime. Maria's destiny seemed sealed. When Gennaro met a tragic end in 1994, poisoned in the prison of Voghera, Maria saw responsibility fall into her hands. Her brothers Pietro and Vincenzo, as well as her husband Antonio Tegemi, were imprisoned, and the clan's leadership needed someone strong. Against all odds and the gender conventions of the mafia, Maria took command. She became the first woman to lead not only the Licciardi clan, but also the powerful Secondigliano alliance, a coalition of mafia families that controlled the trafficking of illicit substances and extortion in Naples. With a cold and calculating style, Maria turned the clan into an even more organized and powerful machine. Under her leadership, the empire grew, and the streets of Naples witnessed both her cunning and her cruelty. The underworld was ruled with an iron hand, but also with a charisma that impressed even her enemies. Perhaps the most controversial change introduced by Maria was the involvement of the Camorra in the trade of intimate relationships. Before, the mafia had a code of honor that prohibited this type of practice. However, under Maria's command, this limit was crossed. the Camorra began acquiring women from Albanian mafias. This decision, although profitable, brought a new level of criticism and public outrage. Even so, Maria remained untouchable. While many mafia leaders sought notoriety, she preferred to operate in the shadows, avoiding the spotlight and the attention of authorities. It was a strategy that worked until absolute power began to crumble. In 1999, a shipment of illicit substances coming from Turkey put Maria's leadership in check. She knew the substance was too strong and prohibited its sale. However, the Lorusso clan, dissatisfied with her leadership, defied the order. The product was sold, resulting in the loss of users' lives and an immediate reaction from authorities. The event caused a rupture in the Secondigliano alliance and triggered a bloody war between clans. Car bombs and coordinated attacks turned Naples into a true battlefield. Maria reacted, but the price was high. Authorities began connecting the dots, and for the first time, Maria Licciardi's name appeared prominently in police reports. She entered Italy's most wanted list and spent years hiding in Secondigliano, protected by a sophisticated network of allies. Maria was a skilled fugitive, but her luck ran out on the 14th of June of 2001. While traveling in a car near Naples, she was arrested. Maria did not resist, but the impact of her arrest was immense. Her brother Vincenzo took over the clan's command, but he too would face the law years later. Even behind bars, Maria remained influential. In 2009, she was released, but her criminal activities never ceased. In 2019, after fleeing once again, she was captured in 2021. 2 years later, in March of 2023, Italian justice sentenced her to 12 years and 8 months in prison. Now, at 71 years old, Maria faces the weight of her choices. Sabrina Duran Montero, known as Ina on social media, was a 24-year-old Chilean woman who gained prominence on TikTok. With thousands of followers, she shared videos that reflected a lifestyle linked to the world of crime. Her popularity grew quickly, but behind the cameras, Sabrina was deeply involved with dangerous individuals. A resident of the commune of Penaflor, Sabrina was not just an online figure. She was part of a group associated with the trafficking of illicit substances in the Las Praderas neighborhood. In mid-2023, the Chilean investigative police dismantled this organization, resulting in the arrest of Sabrina and 9 other people. Authorities identified her as one of the group's leaders. After serving part of her sentence, she was released under supervised freedom, but continued to associate with dangerous individuals. On the 24th of October of 2023, Sabrina was driving through Padre Hurtado, specifically at the intersection of Alberto Blestgana and Primera Transversal Streets. At that moment, she was approached by individuals who attacked her with multiple gunshots. Even though she was taken to the Sapu Santa Rosa for medical care, she did not survive her injuries. Her vehicle was later found burned in the Parinacota neighborhood in Quilicura. Griselda Blanco was born on the 15th of February of 1943 in the coastal city of Cartagena de Indias, Colombia. Daughter of Ana Lucia Restrepo, she lived in conditions of extreme poverty from the beginning. When she was only 3 years old, her mother decided to move to Medellin, seeking a better life, but what they found was an even harsher reality. In Medellin, Griselda grew up in neighborhoods plagued by violence and inequality. At 11 years old, she already showed traits of cruelty and an instinct turned toward crime. During this period, she kidnapped a child from a wealthy neighborhood of the city with the intention of demanding a ransom. When the plan failed, the outcome was tragic. This early event marked the beginning of her rise in the underworld. In adolescence, Griselda was already involved in theft and illegal exploitation. In addition, she discovered that her stepfather planned to attack her. Determined to escape this threat, she ran away from home and plunged fully into the world of crime. Until the age of 20, Griselda lived in Medellin, where she consolidated her reputation as a cunning young woman, unafraid to take extreme measures to survive. It was in Medellin that Griselda began taking her first steps in the international trafficking of illicit substances. With an innovative vision, she created transport routes that became the main channels used by Colombian cartels. In addition, she established a front for her businesses by opening a lingerie shop. However, the pieces sold had the purpose of transporting illegal substances in secret compartments. In the 1970s, with false passports, Griselda illegally immigrated to the United States and settled in Queens, New York. There, she quickly built a lucrative illegal products business. However, in 1975, she was indicted along with 30 of her subordinates for trafficking conspiracy. Realizing that arrest was imminent, she fled back to Colombia, where she remained until planning her next move. At the end of the 1970s, Griselda returned to the United States, this time to Miami. At that time, the city was beginning to emerge as the main entry point of illicit substances into the country, and Griselda saw the perfect opportunity. With ruthless strategies, she monopolized the market and became the central figure of an era marked by unprecedented violence. The police, unable to contain the flow of illicit substances, intensified their operations. It was during this period that Griselda received the nickname Black Widow, a reference to her influence and the way she dealt with rivals and allies. During this phase, Griselda achieved unimaginable wealth. With her second husband, Dario Sepulveda, she expanded the business even further. The couple had a son whom she named Michael Corleone Blanco, in homage to the character from The Godfather. But the relationship with Dario ended in a dark way. After a dispute over Michael's custody, he fled to Colombia with the boy. Griselda then ordered Dario's tragic end, ensuring that her son returned to her. In 1985, Griselda's luck began to change. In a coordinated operation, she was arrested at her home. Convicted of conspiracy to distribute cocaine, she was sentenced to 15 years in prison. During her time behind bars, new accusations emerged. In 2004, after serving her sentence, Griselda was deported to Colombia. She tried to maintain a low profile, but her past haunted her. Despite reports that she had become a devout Christian, Griselda still carried the shadow of her years of crime. The reign of Griselda Blanco ended as brutally as it began. On the 3rd of September of 2012, she went to a butcher shop in the Belén neighborhood in Medellin to shop. While choosing products, she was surprised by two men on a motorcycle. The shots they fired ended the life of one of the most feared women in the world of trafficking at 69 years old, while her daughter-in-law, who was by her side, escaped unharmed. Of Griselda Blanco's 4 children, 2 met tragic ends due to their connections with trafficking. The third remains imprisoned in the United States. Michael Corleone Blanco, the only survivor, speaks openly about the trauma of growing up under his mother's rule. He tries to distance himself from the dark past by running a clothing brand called Puro Blanco and participating in documentaries and series about the criminal underworld. The story of Griselda Blanco is a warning about the dangers of choices and wrong alliances. She was a woman who transformed the world of crime, but paid the ultimate price for her actions. A fascinating and tragic tale that continues to capture the imagination of all who hear her name. Do not forget to subscribe to watch more videos like this.